Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be discussing a collecting topic of fatigue or collecting fatigue. If you guys have your own collections and you've probably experienced this at one point or another, I'm not calling it burnout because I think burnout is more of like you get so into it and you're doing the whatever hobby it is, and then you get to that point where you're just so stressed about it, you're doing it so much that you just never ever go back to it. Like that's what happened to me in soccer. When I used to play soccer as a kid, I did travel, I did high school, I did indoor, like all at the same time, and I really burned myself out, and I still haven't gone back. With fatigue, when you run, you get fatigue, but I keep going back to that. So I think collecting fatigue is something like a challenge to overcome, and especially in hobbies like Pokemon cards, video game collecting, I feel like this kind of fatigue can happen to anyone. It's always exciting to get into a hobby and start that first collection, that first part of the collection. Like you have like a section of your display that you finally complete. Like you go left to right and you have all the games that you want or all the vinyls that you want in that row, and then all of a sudden it's like, what do I do now, right? And I think that can cause a lot of fatigue. So goal setting is pretty important in collecting, because collecting is a thing that you do over time, and it takes many years to start really seeing it, because at the end of the day, you can't just go out and buy somebody else's collection, right? But that's just a lot of money, and collecting's personal, right? If you buy someone else's collection, you're not going to necessarily like everything in that collection. So keep it to what you like, right? I mean, that is one of the simplest things you could do. Don't be buying stuff just to have. If you don't like it, I don't understand why you're buying it. You know what I mean? Especially with, like, we'll bring a more modern example, which is Pokemon cards, right? If you don't like a set, a new set comes out, you don't like the artwork, you don't like the cards in it, then you shouldn't be buying that set just because everyone else is attacking that set. They, saying that it's the best set ever. If it's not meshing with where you want your collection to be at, then just don't buy it, especially with prices being where they are right now. I've kind of taken a step back from the more modern stuff, mainly because I enjoy doing openings. I'm not necessarily buying singles. I like making the videos. I like making the opening videos, and I focus more on vintage cards. So I'm enjoying that aspect more than the modern aspect, where a year ago I was more into modern. Granted, prices were much lower. I could get a booster box for $100 and have a booster box for making like a ton of videos, and it changed, right? Like if I would say if I go in right now and start buying booster boxes and doing the same thing, I would just be having a harder time just due to the prices and trying to find it, and then trying to get the product in here. I was actually feeling, before we kind of did the big channel overhaul, I was feeling a little bit of fatigue from the fact that when it was just Pokemon card openings, when everything started getting harder to find, things were going out of my budget. It was a lot harder to kind of get things here, and planning videos and trying to get something up every week, you know what I mean? So that's kind of just my personal experience with at least that sector, I guess. Cards, right? Card related stuff. Price does play a very large role in, I think, fatigue, right? Because you're bringing home a set amount every week. You're working, you work hard. It's 9 to 5, or in my case, it's 7 to 3:30, but we work hard and we want to spend our money on things that we're gonna like, right? So if you're not gonna like something, it's really not worth you putting the effort to go and try to tell yourself to like it, because what ends up happening is at the end of the day, you're left with something you don't want, and then you're gonna get rid of it, right? But that is not, like, if you're a collector like I am, like, that's not how we think. That's not how you get to where you want to be, right? You see videos of people that have giant collections. Well, if you're just getting burnt out and selling what you had because you don't like it, like, that's you're left with nothing again, right? And you're out money. So it is important to be getting what you like. Setting goals is a great way to fulfill a collection. It could be like, if you're gaming, it could be like, I want to complete a majority of the Nintendo 64 game cartridges, right? That could be a very attainable goal, right? And if it fits your budget, go for it. The other things that really do help me out in terms of collecting is that I have multiple kind of collections, right? I got my Pokemon card collection, I got my video game collection, and I got a vinyl collection, right? So I got 3 main collections that when I kind of get tired of one, I can just jump right to the other. And that's kind of what you're seeing right now. I'm not done with Pokemon cards, right? I'm just waiting. And I moved more over towards my video game collection, right? Because the new Switch 2 is coming out. And in the meantime, behind the scenes, what you guys don't see is me buying some new vinyl that are coming out, and kind of adding more to my record collection, which is always fun to do. And that kind of movement, that freedom to kind of jump between the collecting, it makes it not feel so stale. Makes me want to keep, adding to it. Adding to each one, like piece by piece. What it really does help with is I feel like it's like this mental thing where you get so bogged down and you get so hyper focused on, I need to get this, I need to get this, I need to get this kind of mentality. And when it's all you see in your YouTube feed, it's all you see in, social media, because you start buying the stuff, Instagram, of course, or Facebook is like, you search this one thing up. Well, guess what? Here's a ton of this stuff. And it becomes like, I think that's a social media thing, right? It becomes almost overwhelming. And you're like, you just kind of feel like this paralysis, right? On how to do it. So for me, having those 3 individual areas to kind of like go to when I'm feeling a little bit on the fatigue side, you know what I mean? Being a little bit fatigued in one aspect, I can just move on over and continue what I enjoy doing, which is collecting, right? In the other realms. And that's basically how I've gotten to where my collections are, right? I just kind of bounce around. And it's fun because sometimes your friends are into this one hobby and when they're in the hobby, you get to be in that hobby with them, and you can like teach them stuff, teach them the ins and outs. You can teach them, where to get this product, what's coming out, and it fades off, right? They drop off, and then like something else comes, and that's kind of how I stay alive, honestly, in collecting, because you're collecting over years, right? Like a lot of my cards I've had since I was 4 or 5. A lot of my vinyl I've had since I was 10, 12. Video games, right? It's been my whole life. So it's like, how do I get to that point, right? And making it to that point without getting sick of doing it, right? A lot of the reason why I'm making this video is because like I'm packing up my stuff to move, and I'm like, holy God, holy crap. Geez, I got so much stuff. And I was like, a lot of people would just be like, screw it at some point and just get rid of it all, right? But, to me, as a collector, I'm not going to do that. And avoiding that kind of fatigue is really crucial to having a good collection. Another thing, before I wrap this up, it's just going to be a short video. I think I've been doing a little bit too much negative. I mean, this is kind of like a negative video, but I don't feel like it's too negative. We'll get into some more positive stuff later on. The other thing is, which is really important, I think, to stay collecting, is to basically make a budget. I do not recommend throwing things on credit cards if you want it. If you go into, let's say you go into like a collector store, like a card shop, right? If you feel like you're continuously overspending, and you're like, well, I can't put food on the table, I can't get my kid shoes and that kind of stuff, then you shouldn't be buying what you're buying, right? And it might feel good, you might get that rush of dopamine, adrenaline when you get that, and you're gonna feel really good when you get that. But then when you like a week later, 2 weeks later, maybe a month later, and you're like, well, I don't have enough money, right? I think you do that enough times, like doing it once, splurge. I'm always okay with just, if you find something unique, you find something that you want to add, you weren't thinking about. I do this all the time with records. I end up going to a record store and I have like 3 records that I planned on getting, and then I put it all back for just one that I had no idea existed, right? Like go for that every once in a while. Like I go record shopping probably like once a year, where that generally happens. But if you're doing it all the time, that's going to add up. Buying a $200 card every single time you go in a card shop, and if you don't have that in your budget for your collecting budget, it's going to be all the much more difficult to not say, screw it, I'm done with collecting this. This is not going to work. I don't make enough money. You know, I can't feed myself. I'm not living healthy, right? And you want to make sure, like, when you're doing this, is that you're not putting yourself in a bad position financially, because at the end of the day, the collecting hobby is dictated by money, right? We see it in Pokemon, you see it in video games, you see it in vinyl, right? Like, all three of the things that I do all cost money. There's always a secondary market. And if you're overpaying for stuff constantly, or it's not overpaying for stuff, it's going over budget, right? If you're continuously doing that, at the end of the month, you're going to feel sick to your stomach, right? Unless you really just don't care. Don't recommend putting stuff on credit cards, because if you're just putting stuff on credit cards, you're going to get fatigued, and then you're going to get burned out, and then you'll never come back to, you know, a hobby that you might like over a long period of time, right? Because what you guys got to be thinking about is, where is this going to be in like 5 years from now, right? Where is this going to be 8 years from now? You know, set those goals, what could this be? You know, another thing that I tend to do, it's not going to be a long topic, but, you know, displaying, right? What kind of desk am I going to have? What kind of cabinet am I going to have? What kind of setup is it going to look like, right? And, you know, I'm thinking about that right now, you know, because I'm moving into a new house, but like, that's something that I enjoy doing, that it adds more to not getting fatigued, right? Like, it's like just that next thing where I get to like kind of design what I want people to see, right? Because, you know, some of my collection gets thrown in the closet and isn't seen, but other stuff is on display, and other stuff, I got cool stuff that I want people to be like, oh, hey, that's kind of neat, right? Like, that's a part of collecting. If you get burnt out too fast, you don't get to that part. If you just leave what you were just doing, you'll never have it. So anyway, guys, that is all the time I got for you guys today. Sorry, it was a little bit not too structured, but I just wanted a quick discussion. I'm trying to not be as negative, because upcoming stuff is going to be a lot more positive. So I guess I got to get all the negative stuff out of the way and just kind of talk about it to you guys, you know, because that's part of the channel. Before I say subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment, I will say that I will be trying to be doing discussions on every Monday, releasing at 4. That is my goal, to start really honing in on a day and a time for you guys, so you know when the videos are up. I think it was 2 weeks in a row I've done Monday at 4. And then I'm working on getting more gameplay, more video game gameplay behind the scenes. Maybe we'll do some highlight reels for shorts. And then I got some scripted content if you guys like the do's and don'ts. Guess I'll just make that a series. Gotta get back to the underrated binder for Pokemon cards. But those ones, the scripted stuff, I don't know when those are going to release. So when they go up, you know, you'll just get an extra video that week. But I do think these discussion videos, I can basically get up every Monday at 4 for you guys, for the channel. I hope you enjoy them. You know, it's a little bit freeform, right? And sometimes they're not scripted. So sometimes I don't know where they're going. Which is a good thing or a bad thing. It depends on how you look at it. Anyway, if you like this video, hit that like button. You guys have been great at hitting the like button recently, and it's really helped push these videos out there. And there's also been a bunch of new subscribers, so thank you all who have subscribed so far. I hope you are enjoying the content that I'm making. Leave a comment down below on your experience with collecting or collecting fatigue. Have you guys got it? Have you guys been in a hobby and just been so fatigued that you just kind of stopped for a while? How have you guys overcome that? How have you guys made it through so that your collections are where they are right now? All right, guys, thank you for watching the Average Joe Show. I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.